more photography in the Fens, and today I'm at a place called Denver Sluice, and or to give it its proper name, the Denver Complex, because it's a whole series network of sluices and gates and locks controlling the flow principally of the River Great Ouse, but there's so much more going on here than that, and this is part of my ongoing fen photography project. So I'm shooting with Canon 5D4 today, full frame, and currently got the 24-70 lens on, and 24 is just nicely wide enough here. Really, I'm a little bit too low sat like this. It feels very, very comfortable. It's actually quite a nice position to be in, but the top of the right hand gantry is just clipping the top of the frame, and I'd just like a little bit more breathing space around it. I don't know if you can see on the camera there, but it appears to be some sort of owl type shape up there. I don't really know what that's all about. Maybe it's just to deter birds from nesting in that area, perhaps. So I need a little bit more height just to get the top of the gantry in. Whether sitting up like this will do it, that's probably just about enough. I probably don't really need as much foreground as I'm taking, because this is actually quite a good position like this. It doesn't feel very elegant, and I'm just going to meter off the right hand gate, so that's given me hundredths of a sec. I'm at 100 ISO, plenty of sunshine today, and I've got people walking across now. I've just seen through my viewfinder, so I'm just going to pause for a second and let them clear off. They're going to look. They're not going to stop. No, they're not going to stop. That's good. So I just need to lift myself a little more, just try and keep the uprights square in the frame. I've got one of the little mooring pegs in the bottom right hand corner, and there we go. I'm just checking that on the back. So that's image number 5 today, number 27 serial number. That's just for my reference when I come back to look at the pictures. And I'm just going to go forward. Now I'm going to shoot across the gates. I'm going to ignore this gate nearest to me, and I'm just going to go into portrait fashion. F11 I'm hoping is going to be more than enough depth of field for this, because there's a lot going on here. I've got these green drums, part of the barrier to the locks, and I just need a little bit more height again, just trying to keep the uprights. Not so sure about that one. The trees behind the ironworks sort of, I feel like I'm losing the shape a little bit there. Oop, nearly stumbled, at least it was in that direction. I've got these very, very bright lights on the gantries between the two main sluices, throwing down some bright lights into the river, and also the faded part of the drums is also quite bright on the river, and I'm just looking at those. In my mind, this is black and white monochrome territory all day long, and that might come to be, but we'll see. It's quite a nice view from further up the bank here, so I may just come back up here in a second and get this shot. It needs to be a little bit wider than you're seeing it through the video at the moment. I've got these handrails down here and the steps, which I'm sure that I can keep out. There are some branches dropping down into the shot, and if I just position myself well, I'm at the maximum height now of the bank almost. But yes, this is as wide as I can go on the video, but I think I'll just come back up here and see if I can get a better shot, particularly with this gate that's right in front of me, very dominant, and a little wider you can see the gate on the other side, and that might just make a very nice composition. So that's the next task for me now. So I'm hoping what you can see now, and I'll find out when I get back to my laptop, is the three structures that make up, or the three main structures that make up the sluice here. And disappointed that I've got to get some of the barriers in the foreground, but that's part of the environment here, so they're going to be included. You can see the barrier to the sluices on the bottom left, and I'm going to frame this. I would prefer to be a little bit higher, a little bit more upright. I could take out some of the barriers, but unfortunately the tree branches do get in the way. I'm just going to stop because, well actually no I'm not, I'm just going to let it pass over. There's a tractor coming over the bridge now, so just let that pass. So I'm going to take a shot from here, probably going to underexpose it a little and see if I can then use that in the post-production, just to lose the impact of the barriers. So let's see how I get on. So that's my first shooting session on this location. I've got a few hours ahead of me, and I'm hoping that I can get a lot more content before I leave this place. There are a number of other gates and sluices as part of this complex, as I mentioned, so I'm going to go and have a more detailed look at those, and as I move about, try and start capturing some of the detail, and where I can I'll share that with you. It's I think fair to say, from what I've seen while I've been here, and particularly when you even just take into account what's behind me, that this is the daddy of the infrastructure of the Fens. This controls so much of what happens in such a large area. It at times it will hold back the Ouse when there are floodwaters coming down to protect low-lying areas. Other times it will protect the low-lying areas upstream, I think I've got that right, upstream, from tidal surges and storm surges that come back down from the coast. We're about 12, 13, maybe 15 miles from the coast here, and an awful lot of the land between here and there and beyond is below sea level. So these sluices control the flow of the waters through various drainage channels, through direct it into designated flood areas, areas that have been designed specifically to accept large amounts of excess water until it's safe to release it. And something I didn't realise until I got here today is that just about 100 yards away to my left is a drainage channel which connects to a tunnel which connects to the reservoirs in Essex, and the water is drained back some 100 miles, about 140 kilometres I think I read, to replenish reservoirs in southern Essex. So that's some remarkable engineering that's gone on there, and most of that happened between 400 years ago and 50 years ago. So quite a lot going on here. So as far as my Fen project goes, this is a really significant location, and I found out a great deal more already today. So next thing to do is to go and photograph some of the other bits and get some of the landscape that surrounds this, and I'll try and share that and show that to you. This is from the other side of the river. I was intended to video as I came across, but a huge truck with an excavator on the back of it just came by, and I needed to get off the bridge and out of the way. So just to give you your bearings, so that's where I was looking downstream, and I was shooting from over near that willow, almost centre of the frame there for the first shots of the day. And here we are looking the other way. And this gives you some sense of the surrounding landscape. These banks are entirely artificial. I don't know whether the camera will allow the perspective over there, but you can see the land beyond the riverbanks is much, much lower. So these riverbanks are what's protecting the land, and they're absolutely vital. This is the next part of the complex that I'm going to be photographing, and this is an entirely separate gate, entirely separate channel. This, if I've got my facts straight, is the relief channel, and this is part of the system for redirecting water. When I was here earlier, I was walking around here and on the other bank trying to find an angle where I could capture this. This gate, or sluice, is called the A.G. Wright sluice. It's a much more dominant part of the whole infrastructure. Came after the original Denver sluice, and yeah, definitely the word monstrosity. I think I've already used that once today. There's nothing attractive or appealing about this in terms of how it looks. It's built entirely for function, not for form. But again, it does really, really important work protecting this huge area of lands, both sides of the gate. Now, I had an idea, and I tried it without a camera in my hand, that I could walk along that wall in the foreground. There's just enough of a ledge, and then I can get my arm around the fence if I don't stumble and fall down the flood protection there, and try and get a shot. And it's going to be very hit and miss, but I'm going to give it a go. So this might be fun. Okay, here's the plan. 5D with a wrist strap on, normally reserved for my M50, just to give me a little bit of extra security because I'm going to be holding it out one-handed. I'm going to be climbing along that wall to get around that fence at the end. I'm not going to get sight of it, so there's going to be a bit of trial and error. I've pushed the ISO up. There's plenty of daylight today, so I've gone to 400. I've taken a reading off of the lighter part of this first tower, and that's given me 500ths of a second at f11. The lens is stabilised. It hasn't got to be perfect. It's got to be enough to work with. So I'm going to shoot wide. That's possibly going to mean I'm going to end up with converging verticals. That will be a small price to pay, but let's just see how it goes. So, got my left hand. I'm going to be able to hold on to this rail quite comfortably, and don't need to get too close to the fence. You can see the fence is here, so I'm going round, and actually, if I was smart, I'd put my live view on, because I can actually frame it through the fence. That's only just dawned on me. So just going to wait for that traffic to pass, and I've just got to keep focused on. I need the hat today, it's so warm, but it's just getting in my way. So that actually wasn't as difficult as I made it out to be. And I'm going to just reduce the exposure by 2/3 of a stop. I think that might just end up with a more pleasant, more pleasing result. And I'm going to zoom a little bit. I'm going to just take a little bit more out of the foreground with this. That's too much. I'm just about 40mm there, so I'm going to come back to 35mm, see how that looks. Still a bit too cramped. Back to about 28. I'm probably going to end up back at 24, but I'm trying to lift and lose as much of the converging vertical as I can. The only thing that I'm thinking about is whether I've got enough river in, and I think I have. But I'm looking at it on the back of the camera. I have got the converging verticals. I could do with a little bit more height. Don't know whether I can take it by just stepping up on that rail. I can't, because by doing that I can't actually get the position I need. Go round again, go up higher. Right, that is out of my sight with the reflection. That's a much tighter crop. I might be able to work with that, but I don't think I will. And I'm getting very, very shaky at arm's length there. That's really not a good composition at all. The only other thing I might be able to do by doing this is just go right on top of the fence here. So this might work. Again, I cannot see the viewfinder. No, horrid. Worse. Right, going backwards here. I think one last thing I'm going to try and do, I'm probably making this harder than it needs to be, is two-handed over the fence. Oh, that's a stretch. That's a stretch. That's just too much. Wish I'd brought a step with me. Okay, we're going to leave it there for a minute. So apologies in advance if this doesn't work. This is me trying to record myself with my M50 handheld, and I don't know if it's such a good idea. We're going to find out. I don't know how well the stabilisation works, particularly this close, but really thought I needed to give it a try because my iPhone can't cope with doing the whole afternoon without being recharged. So I'm saving a bit of that for later. As far as I can see, looking at the screen in front of me, I'm in intense shadow, and that's with a little bit of overexposure dialed in. So again, I don't know why I'm apologising, because if it really is rubbish, you're never going to see this anyway. I'm recording myself as I cross over the bridge under the AG right, getting too close, but my arm doesn't half ache holding it out here, and it's not particularly heavy. In fact, it's not heavy at all, certainly not compared to an SLR. Maybe just a light monopod would be a good idea if I do this in future. I'm also breaking one of the rules that I said that I would set myself, which is walking and talking. Never really works for me. So I'm just passing over onto another bridge now. So I'm just going to pause the camera and going to turn you around and show you where I am now. So this is the diversion channel which leads, depending upon which direction you're looking, back to Essex and to some of the tributaries of the Ouse and Cam. And in this direction is the coast, the sea, the Wash. And those sluices that you just saw there have a name that I've forgotten. I chanted it to myself this morning when I learnt it, and it's gone completely out of my head now. It's not very memorable, but in a second I'll tell you again. So, sorry, just lost track there. Just get you back, widen it a little bit, there we go. So, I think I'm going to get a shot from here, just to add to the portfolio from this area. So I'm back on the 5D now, and I'm shooting some footage just through so you can see exactly what I'm seeing through the 5D viewfinder. And this is a very wide shot. It's a long time into the frame before you get to anything more interesting than the rushes on the left, which and on the right, although they're a little bit in shadow as far as the camera's concerned. That might be a job for editing, just to lift them a little bit, but I could try zooming and just going for the pure silhouette like that. That's as close as I can get with this lens. I could swap over to the 70-200, which I brought with me today with the intention of using, knowing that I was going to be on water and I wouldn't always be able to reach what I was looking at. I don't know if you can see through the viewfinder, but there's something sticking up between the centre span on the upper part, and you can see that actually it's reflection in the lower part of the span, and that is annoying me. So I'm just going to shift position because I want to try and lose that against one of the upright parts. So this is the new position, and I'm just going to go a little wider. Got some reflections off the pontoon. Don't really want all that sky, so I'm going to go down a little bit there. And I think that's, let's just try wider still. Actually, there's something quite nice about that, just being that low. So that's where I'm going to take the shot. That's got a few shots in the bag there. So that's the three main structures of the complex that I've captured so far, but I haven't really done much of the river yet. So my next task is to head off in this direction along the bank there and shoot back towards the AG Wright sluice, the bigger of the three sluices, but trying to catch some of the scenery. So as you can see, I'm looking back at the AG Wright sluice, the dominant sluice of the complex. Though to me, looking at what's happening with the machinery and everything that's up against the gates and the barriers, that they don't appear to have been open for some time. So I don't know how often this part of the complex, this part of the machinery comes into operation. But the way the light's falling across it now, and with these buoys, barriers across the water, I'm seeing a composition of the lights, of the light coming through on the concrete bases, foundations, not quite sure what the right word is. And I really want to get close in and possibly have some colour in the foreground with one of the buoys. So I think this is the time that I'm going to get the 70-200 onto the 5D, and also something that's a bit of a rarity for me, I'm going to fix it onto a tripod. I like to go handheld as much as I possibly can to allow me to adjust and move and respond to what I'm seeing and what I'm feeling, and I don't find a tripod allows me to do that, but I think it's what I'm going to need. So the first task, now that I've got the longer lens on, is just trying to pick out a composition that's going to work. And this is the 7200 at the shorter end of the scale, so I'm at 70, and already I'm starting to think this might have been a mistake. That's everything from the spot that I'm on, so I might need to move further down river if I want to get a different perspective, but I'm going to try and work this. One of the things that I'm seeing is that the water isn't uniformly smooth. I don't know why that is. It was perfectly still as I walked over the bridge. You might recall from the footage that I shot, or maybe that's just how it appeared from that direction. But now I've got this area of calm water, or calmer water, and this area of really busy water. Apologies if that isn't too steady as I show you. And that's spoiling it for me, but I'm just going to try and work with the nearest buoy, although it's probably the one that's most discoloured. So we'll see how we go. So I've moved a little further down the riverbank, and I'm a bit closer to what I envisaged. The water isn't changing, so that's that. I'm going to have to live with that. It would be the sort of thing where I would do a long exposure if I really wanted to get something, but I don't think the shot's really worth the investment in that. So this is the first composition, and this is the second composition that I'm considering. Now, I wish that the second composition had this buoy, which has got a lot more colour on it than this one. And of course there's always Photoshop, but I really don't think it's that important. I quite like the reeds on the left, and there's a little bit of symmetry here, and this shot is really all about those shadows and that stripe of white light coming through underneath the spans. Apologies again, this is really shaky, but I'm at about 180 millimeters zoom, and I'm holding with just my left hand, not trying to show off. I don't even know why I'm doing that. It just seems that my right hand appears to be making the shake worse. So I'm just going to flip over to my viewfinder and grab the shot there, working out the exposure. At the moment I'm showing about, and I can't read because the light's so bright, about 1/160th at f11, which is probably not going to be enough, so I'm probably going to come back to f8 and give myself a little bit more speed on the shutter. The other thing is I need to get my head right down, so here we go. Lots and lots of shadow in that shot, just getting the sky under control. And I'm going to just try again. That was at 1/1000th of a sec, f8. I'm just going to come back a little bit, just having a look at the histogram. Yeah, I can probably come back a little bit more. So, just to correct myself, that wasn't 1/1000th of a sec, that was my eyesight and the light. That was 1/1600th of a sec at f8, and the next shot is 1/11250th of a sec, and that's altogether more acceptable. I think I'm going to be able to work with that, still holding the sky. So I think I've mentioned this a few times when I've been vlogging up till now, not that I've done that much, but boy do I find it difficult to be a photographer and a videographer simultaneously. It really does not come naturally to me, and the more I do, the more I'm in admiration of you people out there who seem to do both. and put together good, meaningful videos. So if you're suddenly thinking, are you on the M50 or are you on the iPhone, Gary? I'm on the M50, and I've got my lightweight Manfrotto tripod in one hand and my super heavy tripod with full frame DSLR and a 7200 zoom mounted on it in the other, and a backpack on. And I've just walked 50 yards and I need to stop. The awkward pose, pause, not pose, awkward pause. Well, the name of my tripod suddenly escaped me. I've got a Vanguard, which I bought probably best part 15 years ago, when it was much less of a name than it is now. And it's a really, really good tripod, but I don't like using tripods. I just find that they limit me too much. But the fact is that videography wise, I need another pair of hands. And so I think I just need to get used to the idea of using tripod more. I've often wondered why so many of the photographers that I watch and follow on YouTube use tripods where I'm looking at it thinking, do you really need one at that shutter speed, with that location, with that amount of light, with the capability of modern cameras? And increasingly I start to think it's probably got nothing to do with that at all. They're taking the extra ISO and aperture because they can, because they're on a tripod, but probably their first thought is, I can't cope with everything in my hands. So another lesson learnt for me today. So back to today, walking down the riverbank now, and I'm looking to shoot up the relief channel. The water's changing every minute now. If I didn't know better, I would say that what I'm seeing is a tidal movement, with the water moving back towards the sluices. I'll know, I've got a few pointers that I've looked at to see whether they get covered. That's assuming they don't float, of course. What little I know about what goes on around here, but I'm finding out all the time. So there was some really, really slack water just a few moments ago, and all of a sudden I'm catching eddies on it now. So I'm going to move down and let's see what happens. So I've gone down the riverbank a bit, and the shot I was looking for is the shot that you can see over my shoulder over there, towards the bridge and the balancing lock. Still not the right name for it. Might get it by the end of the day. But I'm in danger of over-investing in a shot that probably in my heart, when I get back to it on the laptop, I'm going to go, why did I put all the time and effort into that? It's a nice scene, and there are some nice colours in the scene. The sky's pretty dull and uninteresting. There's a lot of shadow down there, and zoomed, if I try and lift those shadows a little bit in post-processing, they're probably going to go grainy and mushy. Not definitely, but there's a good chance that they will. And then I'm going to spend far too much time trying to save a shot that I thought was really worth it. And I'm not convinced. I've tried a few positions along the riverbank. The best one meant that I was knee deep in some pretty vicious brambles. And that was without a tripod and without a camera in my hand. And I decided that, and it wasn't a great position either. So I think I'm going to abandon shooting back down the river. I really did want to get more of the river included with one of these. So I'm just going to pack down a little bit now and make my way back to the original Denver Sluice, see how the lights changed, see what's going on around there as far as light's concerned, and we'll see where we get to from there. Well, I'm back at the Denver Sluice, and my first thoughts when I got here were, there's nothing more for me here that I haven't already had earlier today. The light is different, but it's not setting me on fire at the moment. There would just be more shots that didn't really add anything compositionally or that. And I was prowling up and down this mooring site looking, and then I realised I'd been staring at a heron that was stood on one of the, I'm going to say, sticky out bits of the lock. I don't really know what the right name for it is. I know there is a proper name, but anyway, I might look that up when I get home. But he was stood there absolutely still, and I managed to get one shot off, and then was looking to reframe, and he or she took off and went along the river. I got a couple of shots in flight, probably in focus, but they've got the old pub in the background, so I don't think they're going to be a lot of use. But definitely pleased with the one. He was well lit on the lock, so I'm going to be adding that to the pictures, I think. And I'm just going to take a few more minutes here and just see if waiting is worth the effort. I could walk to a new site here, a new location, but I've been carrying all day, and I am starting to tire a little bit now, and that's never a good frame of mind to be in when you're trying to think a bit more imaginatively. So I'm just going to sit here and see what comes to me rather than me go looking for it. So as I'm packing down, and I've got to change lenses, and I really ought to check that my microphone is switched on, and it is. I thought I'd just put the 1740 on instead of the 2470 back on. I might have said before, I'm not a huge fan of shooting at 17mm when you've got lots of straight edges in a picture. It just never works, or people for that matter. I use it in my wedding photography sometimes when I'm indoors, and then quite often I wish I hadn't. And that's a bit ungrateful really, because the fact is that the shots technically are a bit rubbish, but people love them, and there's no way that I could capture what I capture with anything else. It nearly works. You kind of want all the wide angle, and you don't want any of the distortion at the edges that comes with it. And I have to say that with some wedding shots, it absolutely means that what it does to some people, that the picture just can't go into the final album. Anyway, that's wedding photography. Today I'm shooting outdoors, got all these straight edges, and I'm just going to go for some very, very strong silhouettes. Or I'm just going to let the sun go. Well, I'm going to have to let the sun go anyway, because I've let it go a bit too much there. And just never ceases to amaze me. That's not too bad. And I'm just going to retry this shot that I tried earlier with the zoom. No, I'm not from there, I'm not. Don't know if you can even see me actually from the camera down there. I am here. Hopefully you can hear me. That's not working either. No. There was a reason I tried it with a zoom. It was because I cut out a lot of... Just want to try and get it through this gantry a little bit if I can. This might work. The verticals in this have just gone bonkers. So be it. They'll probably never make it past a quick viewing in the preview pane, but you just never know. I have no choice but to include the sun. And I think at shot number 107 on the camera, I'm going to call it a day today. It's actually 85 frames today, which is not a really big day, to be honest with you, particularly not given all the subject matter that I've got. But I'm quite happy. Consider today to have been another recce, really, and a long recce, but I need to be out here either at dawn or at dusk if I'm going to get the kind of silhouettes I really would enjoy. But today's not that day. Switching off. So time for a breather. Hoping you can see me because I can't see the screen even though it's facing towards me. The sunlight is so bright against me. Not complaining. Been a long time coming this year. So many grey skies that we've had through the winter. It's really, really nice to be out and to feel warm and just to have end-to-end sunshine. Obviously, as all us photographers know, it's kind of problematic for all sorts of reasons, but you work with what you've got, and I'm certainly not complaining. So just do a little bit of housekeeping on this video. As you've probably figured out if you've got this far through the video, and I imagine I'm going to be putting this segment in somewhere towards the end, I'm learning videography. The more I try it, the more I'm impressed with the people who do it, and what I've largely taken for granted perhaps over the years when I've tuned into various photographers talking through what they do on YouTube. So all of you out there who are doing it, respect. Feel like I'm squinting a little bit, so apologies if I appear to have my eyes closed. So to recap, this is Denver Sluice. It's the Denver Sluice complex. There's lots here. It's a long way from most cities. Probably the closest city is Norwich. I don't think King's Lynn counts as a city at the moment. Probably the people of King's Lynn will have something to say about that, especially if I'm wrong. But not far from King's Lynn. The nearest bigger place is Downham Market, which is just a couple of miles away, and the village itself is Denver. There's lots of car parking here. It's free. As far as I can tell, it's reasonably accessible for most of the day. It does say there are toilets here, but I haven't found anywhere, and I don't think there's anywhere I haven't looked. So if you are coming, be prepared. I'm sure that you can probably find toilets not too far away, but there are none here. As you might have seen in one of the earlier segments, there used to be a pub here. It doesn't look too run down, but it's definitely closed. It's all fenced off. Be nice to think that somebody will take that over and make that happen again, because it looks like an idyllic location. I will endeavour to add lots of what three words locations to this video. You'll know by now whether I'm as good as my word. I might just summarise them rather than have them pop up everywhere. I need to figure out my editing process and my compilation process of putting things together, because it's still very, very long-winded the way I'm doing it. And maybe that's how it's supposed to be, but I really don't know. And I'm looking over to my right. It looks as if there's a bird in the grass just watching me and wondering what on earth I'm doing. But I don't think it is a bird. Once again, I think it's my eyes. So I've shot probably the most footage I've shot on any of my trips out. I've got more time today, so that's partly the reason for that. But there's so much here to capture. So if you've got interest in the outdoors, in nature, and in what goes on in the East Anglia region, this is and you haven't been here before, I highly recommend it. It's a great picnic, great area to walk your dogs. I've seen lots and lots of dog walkers, and today is a weekday afternoon, lots and lots of people, so I can only imagine it's even busier at the weekend. It's been a bit stumbly, the footage this afternoon. Some of it's going to have been a bit shaky. I think when I look at it, I'm going to be having a word with myself about whether I'm actually going to use it or not. If it's marginal, I'm going to tell you now, I am going to use it, and I'm just going to try and get better at it. I hope that you found some value in what I've talked through as I'm taking the shots. I'm still framing all of that kind of content in my mind about what people really want to know, what they really want to understand. My main emphasis really, I'm talking you through some of the settings simply so you can understand how I'm interpreting that into the camera, but really what I really want to get over is what I'm looking to include in a shot, what I'm looking to exclude, and how the content fits into this overall project, which is still very much taking shape. Anyway, that's another 5 to 10 minutes worth of rambling, I guess. So I'm going to end there. So I'm going to say my thank yous for watching now, and hopefully it won't be too long before the next video. Bye.